Perfect. Okay. Welcome to another edition of the Live Series podcast. This week we will be discussing the issue of diversity and inclusion within tech. I'm joined today by Magnus Krygell, talent acquisition lead at SYBO Games. Lina Kucinskaite, most recently recruitment lead at VanMoof. Denise van Egdom, talent acquisition manager at ConQuestor. And Silvia Vlaar-Reis, Director of People and Places at WeTransfer. Thank you all for joining me today. So the first question for me is quite a broad question, just to set some context. So what does diversity and inclusion look like in 2023, and what trends have we seen? Denise, would you like to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, I think it's hard to pinpoint it on a year because it really depends on where you go. So I work as a freelancer in different companies, and I see that it's definitely not at the same level in every company, but I think there's definitely more awareness and willingness to recruit diverse and inclusive. But yeah, I think it's really difficult to just say, okay, this is where we are in 2023.
Perfect. Anybody else?
I can jump in. Perhaps I did observe some trends talking to a lot of candidates. So I spent last year's hiring at VanMoof for a lot of different teams, so ranging from tech to finance to operations. Even my team takes care of the retail hiring in a lot of different locations, different continents even. But I do see a bit of a trend what candidates tend to talk to and ask about in terms of benefits, culture. So one trend was an emphasis on mental health and well-being. I think especially after COVID years, that's a big topic. What do companies do to support their employees there? Also brings me to my second point, like offering remote work, working remotely in many cases, I think also talents that are a bit diverse, perhaps more introverted, really prefer to work full-time at home, and now it's possible since a few years. So I think that was a trend. And also increased transparency, talking about salaries more openly, being more honest and open with the candidates in the initial states about the culture and company and what we can offer. I think that gives a good idea and more security for people who are, less assertive, maybe takes longer to make decisions. They give more information a bit and create this transparency. So I believe these are the trends I noted. I'm not sure if everybody else agrees or spotted something differently.
Yeah, I could add to what you just said. I see a huge differentiation of how the diversity inclusion was discussed in previous years. It goes very much with trends. We had Black Lives Matter, and previously diversity was seen as ethnical diversity only. There was very little talk about other types of diversity. But now, because there are governmental changes coming, especially on pay transparency, companies are looking at diversity and inclusion not just as an awareness topic, but they're actually having to go into action. They're having to prepare for when those regulations, state government regulations, will kick in, where they're mandating that we need to pay people equally, independently of ethnicity, gender, etc., etc. And another topic that has a lot of focus that previously didn't have is on attracting talent. And I think it has to do with the fact that we have a new generation of workforce that is more woke to what diversity inclusion is, and that does care about those things. They ask questions on interviews. They want to know, what are you doing specifically? They do due diligence on going on websites and looking, is your management team all white males? So if you want to stay on top of the talent war as a company, you cannot ignore this topic.
Perfect. And you, Magnus?
Yeah, I fully agree. It's something that we need to have in mind with everything we do, especially also on different social platforms when we're trying to brand ourselves. Candidates are very interested in the inside out. We need to show real people, real like stories, because we can see we get a lot of buy-in, a lot of impressions. Before it was just like the progression framework that was interesting, or our benefit packages seems to do the trick. But now something different, and yeah, we're tracking a lot on our multiple platforms to see how we actually perform, and that's like a key takeaway so far, and something we need to like bring with us into 24 for sure, and try to utilize that even more. And it's yeah, it's very top of mind in the Nordic countries when we're looking into employer branding and recruitment in general, that everyone is aware of diversity inclusion. And we do not have a policy, it's not in our handbook, it's not on our webpage, then we're just one step behind.
Mm-hmm. So for companies that might not do this, are you totally transparent with all candidates up front when it comes to your diversity and inclusion policies?
Well, it's a work in progress. It's also like from like governmental legislation wise that we need to do something, but we're trying it. And then, you know, it's gaming. We have like 28% female, like approximately in average within the gaming scene. So we're trying to balance, and can we push it above 30%? Then we're like really happy. But gender is just the first step, like tip of the iceberg. What else? How do we actually define to be like a diverse and inclusive company? And that's something, and it's not just a small thing, not only for recruitment, it's for like our management team, it's our C-level to step in to actually set the direction, and then we can start interpret into how we work with recruiting and diversity. But it's yeah, just like compliance and big data were a couple of years back. We need to like interpret in our own ways first.
Yeah. What about anybody else? Does anybody else have any thoughts on making it as transparent as possible to candidates and people that, you know, may be joining your company? Feel free to jump in, anyone. Lina, you like have something to say there, nodding along?
Yeah, I think it can start with the onboarding of new colleagues. This is a past talent aggression after the process, of course, but having like these topics and these policies emphasized, like I think from the first day since somebody joined. That's what we did at VanMoof, communicate our policies or social codes, culture, even introduce the co-founders and meet as many people as you can from different teams and different departments to get a feeling. So I think that should be handy to have in onboarding new talent. So that would be my idea, how to implement it.
I think even before onboarding, the whole process of recruitment and interviewing already can give candidates a good sense of either diversity and inclusion is important to you. The way you're advertising for your vacancies, for example, a lot of companies are making sure that people that are blind or impaired in some way are also getting access to their vacancies and getting the opportunity to apply as well. Accessibility during the interviews, right? Making sure are people with disabilities, physical disabilities, able to assess interviews and buildings, are people that are neurodivergent with, for example, dyslexia, able to read, understand when there's a business case as part of the recruitment. And this all ties up with looking at your processes from, you know, recruitment till, you know, pension, and making sure that they are inclusive. And this can tell candidates a lot about what a company is, how inclusive a company is or is not.
Interesting. What about you, Denise? Do you have anything to add on that? Any experiences?
Well, I fully agree with what Silvia says, that it has to be tailored to candidates. So not everybody is the same, but you want to give them the same chances. So indeed, if somebody has a neurodiversity, make sure that they have more time for a test, or give them some more time to land into the interview, and you can already make the difference there. Also with setting up diverse interviewing teams that really represent the company well, so they have a good understanding of who actually works there and where they will land. Can make them feel more welcome. You can already showcase a lot of stuff what you're doing on diversity and inclusion in the recruiting process.
Perfect. Great. Some great points there. A lot of agreement as well. It's always great. And so I guess an important question is how does having a diverse and inclusive team contribute towards success in tech? It's kind of the main question, really. Like, what would you say to that, Silvia? You smiling away. You definitely have something there.
It's a good question, and I could share my personal take on it, but I'm not going to. I can tell you that having had multiple conversations with leadership teams in tech companies about how diversity and inclusion is important, in the end, it all ties up to the fact that it's profitable. It's good business to have diverse people, especially in technology where you are creating products for a pretty diverse client base. It's important that you have people working for you that are creating your product, that are marketing your product, that are able to reflect the voices of your customers and the people that you're trying to sell your products to. And this is always the selling point, in my opinion, for any leadership team to care and to talk about these topics, is that it's good for business. There's enough research from different consultancy firms that show clearly that diversity is closely connected with profitability.
Very good. Lina?
Yeah, I fully agree. I think it's been proven already that diverse teams perform better. I've seen it also in my experience working with a lot of like different tech teams, very international, trying to get more female in tech, and then how it ends up being like a very successful team. I think if you bring different people, they have different ways of thinking, different ways of doing things. They bring different experience from all sorts of different backgrounds, which really ends up into boosting a team's creativity and striving for innovation. So I think then colleagues really can also learn new things from each other, and that creates like a beautiful prosperous environment. Also next to it, it's creates like a sense of belonging from everybody, not seeing like the same person all over being hired again, like, hey, they're only hiring this person and I'm a bit different. But hey, we have a very diverse team. This person comes from there, this person did that, and then everybody feels safe and easier to retain talent, I would assume.
Perfect. What about you, Denise?
Yeah, I agree on what's been said before, especially about nurturing your people, but also giving them diversity of thought and a great learning experience from the more diverse colleagues with different backgrounds. Yeah, there's a lot of benefit there.
Yeah, Magnus?
Yeah, I agree with all of you guys. Also, just heard a podcast this morning with a Danish philosopher, Morten Altvik, like very famous in little Denmark, but he speaks a lot about belongingness. And if you're like a diverse group of people, then you're more likely to find someone you can actually mirror yourself. And that's like just like a good onboarding part of that too. So I think belongingness, but also like open up and having like a diverse hiring panel. And there's a lot of studies actually showcasing the benefits, both financially, but also like financially in the end, that's the bottom line, because you can see for retention purpose, motivation, and also like progression too. So it's a no-brainer more or less. But sometimes it's dangerous to actually introduce that to hiring managers, because sometimes they can like really struggle with the halo effect. They have like, I just want a profile, that company, that kind of experience, just providing that, and then I'm happy, because they're normally just as good as anyone, and they know what they get. But that's dangerous part, just to follow that track. But as I always say, it's more like change management than recruitment in my everyday job. So you need to have some backup. You need to align with your chief people officer, your team advisors, to actually join forces. Then you can twist the arm on the hiring manager in the end to make them understand why we're actually doing this. And they suddenly can see the purpose, because sometimes they're very narrow-minded, and all because they're like very focused on the product, on develop stuff, instead of the people mindset. And we need to remind them kindly of that.
Interesting, some great points. Remind me when you said, Silvia, at the beginning that it's actually more profitable to have more diverse teams. Why do we think it's not framed in that way? Why do we think people don't really think about it in that way?
Well, I think from a candidate perspective, from an employee perspective, yeah, people don't want to hear, it's just good for business and that's why companies should care about it, right? That's the perspective of businesses, and things are discussed this way by leadership teams, but it's not what the people work for companies, it's not what people care about. They may care about innovation and know that a diverse company means innovation, belonging, etc. But yeah, this is the way I framed it, is the way I see it being framed within a business, but not to talent. And yeah, and to be honest, also another way to think about it, why is it important, is that it's also in regards to talent acquisition. The tech environment is a very competitive environment, especially now with AI and new technology. There's a very small group of people that have those skills, and if you're not a diverse company and your searching pool is this small, you're not going to have access to that talent, which is bad for business as well. You saw with COVID, the borders open, companies started hiring people in places they didn't have legal entities, and it's just been great for a lot of business, and it facilitated access to skill sets that are difficult to get.
Perfect. Lina, you look like you have something to add to that.
No, I fully agree with Silvia. I think the fact also that let's not stay very narrow in our talent pool. Let's expand. Let's look further. Also, we always say, like, you don't need to tick all the boxes in the job description. I think there was a research that male and female, how they apply for jobs. So male just hit the apply button, even though they don't match like 80% or 70% of the requirements. And females are a bit more careful with that. So we even add, like, you don't need to tick all the boxes all the time in the job description. Just go for it. And I can tell you, we hired so many people that are so successful that didn't tick those boxes in the beginning, but we really saw the potential. So I would say let's not narrow ourselves into those frameworks that we have, and expand our search as well.
Yeah, perfect. And do we think diversity of thought is the biggest bonus we get from having diverse and inclusive teams? Because everyone mentioned it, so I'm guessing that maybe that's the one that has the biggest impact on creativity, productivity. What would you say about that? Feel free, anyone.
I definitely agree. I think that's why we look at, that's why when you talk about diversity, we look at gender, we look at ethnicity, we look at education, sexual orientation, etc. Because in the end, we want people that have that see the world in different lenses, and that have different life experiences, and that all ties up with, diversity of thought.
Yeah, I would also add maybe 2 ideas are better than 1. So if we have more different thinking people, we have more ideas. Of course, at some point, ideas clash also, especially in tech, if you put like a lot of software developers and then think of new solutions. But I think after this, there's a lot of fruitful discussions are born, and maybe like you start even working on a new project that you didn't think about it when you started working together. So I would also agree that it benefits.
Perfect. Magnus, have you got anything to add on that?
No, just the same. Like, we're like 42 different nationalities, a mixture of a bit of everything, and I think like people just thrive in such an environment, and that's what gaming actually can offer. So that's definitely a selling point. But again, we're looking for like really hardcore engineers sometimes, and that can just be so difficult, because then we are suddenly a bit conservative. We need to have a certain level of experience. They need to have the right toolbox, and that's such a dilemma suddenly. Like, we want to be creative, but we are still stuck with the old school of recruiting, and that's where it gets difficult to actually sell in, get buy-in from hiring managers saying, why don't we go with a slight less experienced profile that might have something different to offer in the end. And yeah, it's tricky.
So
it's work in progress.
At what point do you decide, oh, we can compromise on maybe the experience to bring in the more diverse candidate, or is that like case by case?
It's case by case, but it's always trying to stretch them just a bit more for every arm wrestle, every round we take with our hiring managers. But hopefully we get there in 24. But it's a long way. We have been growing a lot in the last couple of years, so now we are ready for also to actually level up our maturity level, and that's also part of the recruitment. Because one thing is maybe we have like nailed the job ad, we have nailed like the different steps, but what if our onboarding sucks? Then it's completely waste of energy and time invested in this recruitment. So I think it's about looking at the entire candidate journey from once they actually seen the job ad or just on platform or whatever, doing like the right steps in the recruitment process, and then we have the critical part of the onboarding, like the successful honeymoon phase, and then the progression framework until they decide to leave. Whether it's got like 12 months, 6 months, doesn't matter, as long as they felt it's been like successful, both the candidate and the company in the end, then it doesn't matter. And we need to be aware that it's going to be really tough to keep candidates for 5-10 years anniversaries like going forward. We need to also look at the scale and scope for like what does success look like for this role, and that's also something that is coming up more and more often in my chats with my hiring managers.
Yeah, great. Denise, have you got anything to add on
that? Yeah, well, I just had a thought, but I lost it, so sorry.
That's all right. No worries at all. We're just going to. I'm thinking now just to touch on a bit more of a broader question. So I want to touch on your experiences, your journeys within talent. So I want to understand what your experiences of like trying to improve diversity in tech. Maybe is there more of an emphasis on promoting diversity and inclusion in your careers now to how it was? Like, what would you say for that, Magnus?
It's definitely a focus area for us, and right now, now we're just doing all preparation bits and pieces. We're trying to. Previously, we only had one like benefit kits we can send out to candidates when we engage with them. Now we have 2 different options actually to send out, because we know that like different triggers for females and males. So we're trying to also look into AI for that matters, like gender decoder, get a lot of inputs to see if it actually works, and trying to be as attractive as possible, because that's the easy one to start with. We need to see if we can attract more females and make gaming or cyber games interesting as a gaming hub in Denmark. That's of course our end goal for next year. We have some big competitors close to us in Malmö in Sweden, and of course also in Copenhagen city with IO and Tactile and Rovio too. So that's we need to be top of mind. Otherwise, we'll just be in the shadow, and all the great candidates from the universities will not even think about cyber games going forward. So we need to show we are like diverse group of people, but also that we can actually adjust the needs and actually what we offer package-wise to our candidates.
Perfect. Anybody else?
I can jump in. We did a big project that maybe I can share. It's kind of a practical thing, and you can implement it also, I believe, in every company. We did hiring training for all the interviewers and hiring managers. It was a massive project. It took like 2 years to train everybody from like building to actually doing the sessions. The sessions were of 3 hours, so also a bit of time. But we managed to train all of them on preparing for interviews, interviewing, and also how to counter biases and like what kind of biases they could come across, how to recognize them, and how to counter them while having a structured interview process. And I have to say, I'm really proud of our interviewing teams. It really paid off, and they even use like the terms they add in their feedback forms, and they really liked the training. And I think the most important, interesting part for them was the bias part, like really how are we being biased, and what are we, first impressions, like the halo effect and the comparison bias, and all of those things. And so I think that was a big project and really improved. Also trying to have diverse hiring teams. So not only the hiring manager interviews the same candidates all over again, but having 2 people present in the interviews, preferably, well, coming from different backgrounds or different race, a different gender, having as diverse interviewing teams as possible, really resulted in very fruitful feedback. Sometimes it's a yes and a no in one interview, then we do a session and a debrief. So really making well-informed decisions on this. And some cases we also did diversity sourcing projects, because we were also, again, like everybody, lacking female in tech, especially for app developers. So we did a massive project with the team. What is the goal we want to hire for? At the end, we hired 2, but still managed to get some female in, and all the team are involved. They provide feedback. They also help with the outreaches. They're more involved in the process. And I think it cycles back to the training that we did. Then they really understood, okay, we need to take part in this in order to build like strong teams together. So I'm very happy that we managed to train them. It's a lot of work and effort, but all the teams were trained like in a year and a half or so. So it really benefited our efforts with regards to diverse teams.
Perfect. Silvia?
Well, I think this question is specifically related to talent acquisition. So I would much rather Denise to take this one for me, as I am not actively involved in the talent acquisition part, even though, of course, I know what the teams have been doing in other companies. So maybe, Denise, you want to take this one on?
Yeah, I'm more than happy. Well, yeah, Silvia and I used to work in the same company where this was a big topic, recruiting tech people. And what really helped us is also really define what we need in culture and skills, and not always pinpoint it on seniority levels. And we really, we also trained people and had interviews always with at least 2 people, so you can really discuss and reflect. You have time to lean back and really observe what's happening. So that was great. But yeah, narrowing it down to like, we need people in the team that bring a new thought, can already help with hiring more diverse, and a set list of questions, so you're sure you tackle the same topics with every candidate. Is very important to make good decisions. And we always challenged each other, because everybody was cheering when we had a female candidate. But then, of course, you shouldn't be biased with your halo effect. And then we were always also challenging each other, like, okay, do we still keep the same bar? Because you don't want to make someone the token of diversity, but you really want to hire them on their merits.
And that company that we worked together in even had to define gender targets, which provoked a bunch of discussions on reverse discrimination and topics like that. So yes, I think one of the things that Denise mentioned, which I think really helped us with looking at merit and skill set and diversity, and not favoritize people which were ethnically diverse or gender diverse, is to be consistent with the way that you are doing recruitment, asking the same questions, having the same process independently for which role and which levels you are hiring for.
Okay, interesting. I can't actually remember who mentioned AI, but it prompted an interesting question from me. And do we think AI can work for countering biases? Do we think that that's a sensible and ethical way to go forward? Some people are optimistic, some people maybe not. What are we thinking?
Often AI is trained by men, so it is biased. So yeah, that's my first thought.
Same. Also, I have the same thought about personality tests. It's super unbiased. I know AI can help you in a bunch of things, but if you go to ChatGPT and you ask ChatGPT to show you a picture of an athlete, the chance is that 99% of the times is going to be a male, is going to be a very muscular male, which is far from the representation of what an athlete is, as you have athletes in all kinds of sports with all kinds of body shapes, etc., etc. So I'm very, very skeptical with the use of AI when it comes to people topics.
In its current state, anyway. Well, what do you think, Magnus?
Well, we're using a bit of it because, like for our job ads, we can get some inspiration. We can get some maybe some new perspective if we use apply saying is it like female worded or masculine worded. Should we remove some? Because sometimes you always it's a collaboration between the hiring manager and the TA team to actually create the job ad, and sometimes you get like a long list with bullets and requirements and saying, hey, maybe we should try to narrow it a bit more down if we want like any females to apply, and also like with the wording, some you like quite powerful words and saying, oh, and that could actually scare off some female applicants. So it's primarily for that reason we use that and trying to use it a bit more because I think we can do a lot more with our wording, be more consistent with our tone of voice, because it's still like we're on this learning journey within SYBO, even though we're like 11 years old, but still we can still pick up a lot of stuff since we've been growing a lot, and that's also part of our maturity level. Even though we are training our hiring managers, we're having diverse hiring teams, and trying to we have the same structures, same questions, do ratings too, but again, it's a never-ending journey, and like it will just keep going.
Yeah, great.
But in short, AI, yes, I'm definitely something we should look into more, and we need to explore a bit more.
So in theory, you could potentially see it working in the future more consistently.
Not completely automated, just blind saying the AI bot will just take care of this. I don't know, an animator, and just completely from screening, interviewing more or less, test and hiring. No, I don't think so.
Great stuff. Lina, what about you?
Yeah, I think really happy that there's innovation there as well, always good. But personally, I would use it as a supporting tool, not like fully 100% rely on it, like to create my job specs or cases or everything. I think we all notice that we still need to do quite some editing when we use ChatGPT. So I just would use it as a supporting tool for inspiration sometimes, but not fully 100% rely on its unbiased and things like that. So I really agree with what Sylvie said. It would be an interesting experiment. I hope somebody could test it in that way and publish something around it if it's not already there. So I would be curious to learn, actually.
I think there was a popular post on LinkedIn a while back where somebody asked AI to translate how different professions would be if they were in the animal kingdom, and it was very, very funny to see how all CEOs were lions and the majestic animals. And there was a lot of discussion at the time, so maybe check it out. It's pretty interesting.
That's what I mean. I think we need to research a bit more, experiment, play with it, and share it, and then just kind of like learn its intelligence, how it works, and then use it to our benefits to support our work, not like 100% rely on it, at least for now.
I think it's dangerous just to rely fully on AI, and you can also see like within the LinkedIn and their offerings, there are different kind of services. Now you can AI customize the message to candidates if you use the recruiter, and if you have looked at it, it's actually quite funny and like a funny read when you're trying to customize it, because it just grab random stuff on your LinkedIn profile or the candidate's profile and just mix it up, and then you become really clear to you that you need to do some editing, you need to customize still, and just have a second opinion on what you actually send out to candidate, because it's really clear that it's just automated.
Definitely, it's still so early as well in the, I guess the AI revolution, isn't it? So I guess the jury's still out on how useful it can be, I guess, in talent. And what are the main obstacles that we found in terms of improving diversity and inclusion in tech recruitment? What would you say, Denise?
Getting a buy-in from everyone in the company, and then I'm not even talking about the management, but also really about the employees themselves, because like Silvia said, in the company that we worked, at some point they made diversity targets, which was a bit difficult. They were very transparent in communicating them, but of course people think or started thinking that we would like do some positive discrimination, or that they might have been a diversity token. So yeah, it's very delicate. But
yeah, anybody else on that?
I agree, actually, because I think it's not only the recruitment team and HR team that need to talk about it. I think everybody should talk about it, and everybody should be in the same boat and promote it and talk about it and ask for it as hiring managers. But also I think sometimes hiring managers don't understand that it also takes time to say, okay, I want 4 female developers in my team, but sometimes, you know, it takes time to find diverse talent, and sometimes there's not a lot of those people that we're looking for. And yeah, also like training your hiring teams, it took like 1.5 years for us. So also like, so they need to pass the training, and then they need to be trained to interview, and then they need to be able to assess biases. So it slows down sometimes the process, at least in my experience. I don't know if everybody agrees. And yeah, indeed, it's not only for HR and recruitment, but for everybody in the company to pull our efforts together.
I agree, and not just talking about diversity in relation to recruitment, but in relation to everything in a business, is that very often ends up being an exercise for HR. Oh, diversity, we need to hire diverse people. HR takes care of it. It becomes a tick of the box kind of exercise, which is not the way to go if you really want people to commit to hiring diversity or to having diversity, equity in the company. It needs to come from the top. It needs to tie up to a strategy. You need to understand, why do we even want to hire diverse talent? And yeah, often for me, what has been an obstacle is to get that buy-in from management, and also even budgets. It's like, oh, we're going to do that, but then there's no allocated budget to do anything. It's just, which also shows lack of commitment to implementing whatever needs to be implemented, specific on the recruitment part, to be able to attract more diverse talent.
And I think it's also important to really talk about the inclusion part there, because once you have them in, we want everybody to feel welcomed and at home, and that needs a total cultural change in some companies, because you can't expect everyone to become like a Dutch person if your company used to be mainly Dutch, but you have to accept that there are different opinions now and different ways of working and doing stuff. And that's also a big change, and again, not only something for HR.
Yeah, and Denise, it's so funny to see that most of the times when companies put in targets in regards to gender diversity, they get to that target and then they quickly realize, oh, we have 50% gender split, but our attrition rate is 20% and they're all females. Because they focus on the attraction part before focusing on the retention part.
Very interesting.
Yeah, that was also my comment regarding the candidate journey. It needs to be like tied really together and synchronized, because otherwise it doesn't matter if you have the best talent acquisition team, if you have the worst onboarding.
Yeah, amazing. So a few of you commented there on buy-in and how important that is, and I think we've established at the strategic level, you know, the C-suite executives, managers may be more aware of the benefits of the, you know, the profitability, etc., the improved performance. Maybe are we seeing more buy-in over the recent years from maybe like leads and managers? Would you say you've seen a change on that front, or is that still a battle that needs to be fought, I guess? Sylvia, I'll ask you.
It depends on either the company has defined this as a KPI. What you see is that once there's measures that need to be tracked, managers start to think about it, and yeah, naturally there's more buy-in, and especially in startups and scale-ups, a lot of investors want to see reporting on diversity and inclusion, which kind of forces management at all levels to look at this and to think about it, and that's a way to get buy-in in a simpler way, because it's on top of mind of everyone's, and it's on everyone's business agenda.
Great. Denise?
Yeah, I agree, and I also think, adding to what was said before, that the younger generation really wants to see diversity and inclusion. It's probably more on the agenda of managers right now, because it is part of interviewing conversations, so they can't ignore it anymore. So yeah, I think there's more awareness, but yeah, it really depends from company to company, in my experience.
Is that your experience as well, Lina?
Yeah, especially working with tech teams. I think everybody by now has heard about it, talked about it, seen the data and reports, and hiring managers come to me and they ask like, okay, we don't need to hire the same person as we already have. Can we look into gender diversity, background diversity, international versus local? So I do not have pushback working with hiring managers on this, and they are actually very willing to put in the time and effort. And hire diverse teams. So it's been going quite easy, especially working with the tech teams. Of course, some teams are different than others. You know, when we're talking about legal teams in the Netherlands, obviously they all need to know Dutch labor laws. So those teams sometimes, in my experience, were less diverse in that sense. But yeah, diversity is also such a broad topic, and we're talking about gender diversity, you know, background diversity, international, social. So yeah, you don't need to always hire like the same person. So I think hiring managers understand that also more and more.
Perfect. Have you had similar experiences, Magnus?
Yes, I work like within different industries, and within the management consulting firms, it's quite difficult, and they were like very conservative in Denmark. But in the gaming scene, I experienced they are really committed and engaged, but they just don't know how to do it actually. So they need some guidance, and that's our job to actually tell them step by step, break it down. So we need to, like, diversity is such a big topic, but you need to break it down to like smaller milestones, saying where to begin. You can look at like gender split as step number one. What about nationalities, capabilities, competences, etc.? That's level XYZ on the road. But they need training and they need guidance, and that's what we're looking into now.
Perfect. That's great. Some great answers again. We've touched on a few of these maybe already in terms of that, how we write ads, etc., trying to be as inclusive as possible. But how do we attract the best diverse talent? would you say, Lina?
Yeah, I think talking about your company's diversities could be the number one step. Talking about it during the screening call already on your website, doing events and maybe sharing with the communities, being present in different communities. Perhaps there's a lot of like online communities, offline communities, like Slack communities for female in tech. Other types of communities. So being present there, having your developers join these communities, these events, and talk about your company in these groups. Yeah, so I think it can already start there, and then it's just gonna roll the ball naturally. And then during the process of hiring, you can definitely emphasize it and showcase how diverse our teams are, how our process is structured fair for everybody, and I think then by the end of the process they have a good idea what they're signing up for.
Perfect. And have you had similar experiences, Denise?
I agree with a lot of what you said, and I think it really starts with getting your basics right. So really showcase by inclusive language and not putting the bar unnecessarily high. To really make it easy to apply for everyone. That's a very important one to start with, I guess.
Yeah, Silvia, you got something to say there?
Yeah, I would say a very simple thing before you even start trying to attract the best talent is internally define what talent is for you. What is how do you measure what good performance is? Starting by looking at that and defining what that is will help you understand where you need to be looking.
Perfect. What about you, Magnus?
Yeah, I think I'll point at the employer branding part, like where to get fined. You need to first, of course, if it's within SYBO, I need to go to our chief marketing officer saying if he can support our roadmap, our game plan, saying we want to go to X amount of events, both in the country but also outside, to see if we can attract talent. We need to be present at various platforms, like it could be Discord, different kind of groups. We need to have some ambassadors representing us, so it shouldn't be me or the TA team driving all the different activities, because that's kind of like the fake. It's not the real SYBO. It's not like our engineers or our artists showcasing their skill sets. That would be too easy to see through. So we have actually pointed out a lot of ambassadors that are willing, that want to engage, that are really outgoing, that actually shows our value. So it's actually just shines through them, saying this is us, this is a fun place to work. So we are doing a lot of that, like really now and down. So we have like a script, like a go-to playbook for how to do university recruiting, how to do events, offsite, onsite, etc. And also, of course, now we have been acquired by Miniclip. We are more looking into how we can actually utilize each other a bit more going forward.
Great. You touched on, Silvia, that a company may hit the 50% quota, like you say, but then they have high levels of attrition, maybe with female employees. How do we keep basically diverse talent? How do we change the approach to the onboarding and make the company more inclusive? Would you say there are best practices for that? Is it company by company, maybe industry by industry? Can you shed some light on that for me?
I think it starts by looking at your culture, right? How do you build an inclusive culture? One of the things that I come across a lot is on gender specific, is that women often don't feel like they can speak up, or they feel that because most of management is male, there is a similarity bias, and the men get promoted faster, etc., which are all very complex topics. So for you to avoid that, start when you're talking about your values in our culture, start looking at how do you build an inclusive culture? How do you make sure that the way you do performance management is as unbiased as possible? The way people communicate in meetings and the platforms that you provide for people to communicate, your code of conduct, right? What you stand for and what it's absolutely a no-go. That's where you start. That's where it all starts, I think, defining your employee proposition and defining your culture and making sure that your culture is inclusive. And this is translated in everything that you do, the way you hire, the way you look at performance, the way conversations are done, the way you provide feedback, etc., etc.
Yeah, great. Would you agree with that, Lina? You're nodding away there.
Yeah, I'm nodding a lot. I agree fully. And I think we just need to celebrate our differences. I think what I really liked, what our learning and development team did is doing a monthly talk from our own colleagues on different topics. So we had 4 female panel on coming from very different countries and how their career went and what kind of obstacles they came across. It was super nice to see that not only females joined this conversation, because then you can see online and see who was there. We had a session on Ramadan, about religion, to learn what it means for some colleagues to go through this time. So just celebrating our differences, whether it's like religion, gender, education, social, I think that could give a voice to employees and make them feel like they're not alone and that we value every different person. I think what our employees trends to when they try to negotiate contracts and offers these days is they're looking for flexible environments. Some people have kids, maybe they need to run, pick them from school. They're not looking for 9 to 5 where they need to sit at the office. Can you provide, again, a hybrid environment? Can I work from my home country because I'm going for Christmas and then I don't want to use all my holidays, to visit my family? So just, I think, a flexible environment for everybody with all different needs, like if it's parents or people from abroad. And I think that giving this flexibility and freedom and trusting your people really empowers them, and then they feel safe and secure. So I think these are a few things that may be nice to mention.
Yeah. What about you, Denise? Would you say that you've seen similar things?
Yeah, I would say main thing, ask people what they want, because often we think of a lot of things or we celebrate stuff in the way we are accustomed to, and then we end up doing a very outdoors activity and it's not that inclusive for people, or we drink a lot of alcohol. So really see what people want and tailor stuff to their needs. And also if it comes to the workplace, of course, for parents, but also again for neurodiverse people, make sure that they can have a quiet space to work if they come to the office. Do they really have to come to the office if it's not working for them? For people with dyslexia, make sure they can install simple tools that help them with their grammar and spelling, and don't block this on your computer. So really make sure that people can get the tools they need to be successful, instead of only thinking about what you want. Ask what they want.
Perfect. And what about you, Magnus? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, fully. But also when we relocate probably 40% of all of our hires to Denmark. So, and they often bring spouses, also a huge variety of pets. We've seen that lately, but we need to take care of them too. So that's really important for them actually thriving, and that adds in another perspective of being like the advisor in the end. You need to bring them a lot of nice to know info about Denmark, neighborhoods, culture, ways of living, and that's something that we haven't been thinking a lot about in the past, but now it's a huge topic we need to cover, and that's very important, to be very honest. And sometimes our candidates haven't done the research properly enough, and we need to tell them more. It's about also part of the negotiation, like vacation days, holidays, what is the normal contract look like, pension, healthcare, etc. And why trying to cheat a candidate of something that can we actually afford to lose this candidate? Why not just provide them all the insights in one go? And I think it's also about showcasing that we're not trying to rip someone off. We're actually trying to motivate them and trying to see if that is a match between candidate and us as an employer in the end.
I've heard the word culture a lot on the answer to this question. It's obviously a very important aspect. And when it comes to culture, do we think from the talent acquisition perspective, from the recruitment perspective, does it come from leadership in this regard? Do leadership ask people what they want, like you say, Denise? Do they ask people enough what they want? Do we see it done better in other companies with different kinds of leadership, do we think? What would you say?
I think we're often afraid to ask because we think there will come up crazy answers, and I think often that won't be the case because people often have a sense of reality, but yeah, they want to succeed at their job and feel at ease. So, but yeah, there are definitely companies who do that, but I think leadership should ask more what people want and see how they can facilitate stuff within reason, obviously.
Cool. Anybody else?
I think when SYBO would do twice a year survey, and it's a must that our C-level, our management team, need to take actions. They need to pin out like 2 topics they need to work on. We need to see something tangible. We need something they can actually present to the entire company after the survey, of course. And then they can break it down saying, this is more people related or is it something different, marketing related? Then, of course, there's a lead or driver for that exact action.
Yeah, perfect. Anybody else on that?
Yeah, I think culture is a very organic thing, and I don't think it's escalated down. I think very often is even the other way around. You know, already what your product is, what you're selling already is a huge indicator of what kind of culture you have. But definitely people are looking for role models, and they're looking for leaders that translate what they want to see as employers. So having leadership, asking the right questions, giving platforms for people to share their thoughts, leading by best practices and leading by example is definitely important.
Perfect. Great. So I want to focus the last part of the podcast just on advice and what advice as senior talent professionals you would give. So what advice would you give to maybe underrepresented groups and how they may secure a role in tech? What would you say there, Denise?
Well, yeah, that's a tough one.
It's $1 million question, I guess.
Yeah.
If anybody else has an answer,
yeah, I would say be honest and then be yourself. I think that always helps.
Also focus on the retention part, right? Landing the job as an underrepresented person or minority. I don't like that word, but you know what I mean. It's not the most important thing. The important thing is you land the job and then you stay and then you're successful. So I would say do your diligence well, check in the company, see if your skill sets apply. And on top of that, try to find something about cultural. Do you see there's already diversity? Because there's a sign that most likely you will identify with the people and you will feel like you belong and feel like you can be successful. Ask questions when you're talking with recruiters on, things in regards to diversity and to understand if the benefits are equal, if it's an equal opportunity employer, like what's the career progression looks like, and how would I fit within that? How are the benefits set up? Just do your due diligence, because if you have the right skill set, I think there's a big chance on how the market is now that you are able to land a job. What comes next is more important.
Definitely. What about you, Lina?
Yeah, I think Denise and Silvia great advice. I'll say don't miss out on opportunities. If you did that due diligence and research and you really feel that this company will make you happy, but you see in the job description that you're missing, I don't know, like a language or some skill, but match the others, just go for it, and you may be surprised. If you don't tick all the boxes, I think I already said, sometimes it doesn't matter. Just don't miss out on this.
Great advice. Magnus?
Yeah, so Silvia also said, like, do you do diligence properly? Because if you're a dishwasher and want to apply for a senior engineer, of course there's a mismatch. But otherwise, just go for it. It's a bit of cliche, but you just need to be brave. You just need to be proactive and reach out to the recruiters, have a chat. And if you're, for our case, it's primarily artists that reach out to us a lot saying, I have these kind of skill sets. I haven't been working with your art style. I'm a huge fan of Subway Surfers. And sometimes we just see a lot, I've just been doing this in my spare time. Could you have a look? And then our artists look into saying, wow, amazing. We haven't worked with our toolbox yet, but this just looked great. And then they can actually get a case perhaps and just a coffee chat too. So I think sometimes you can miss out a lot if you just say no to a lot of candidates.
I fully agree. Yeah. But yeah, that's maybe also why I said be honest, be yourself, because I believe if a candidate really shows who they are and what they want, then you can really plug into that and see if you can make it work.
I think I'm sorry, Denise. I think it's about how to assess potential instead of looking retrospectively on the track record instead. Saying maybe you want to change career path or something, and maybe you have a lot of potential and a lot of talent. Why not go for it?
Amazing. Great answers again. Great insights. And I guess that the final question from me is kind of the same question, but again, aimed at sort of talent professionals, people who may be early on in their talent journey. What advice would you give them when it comes to maybe being a talent professional that does seek to improve diversity and inclusion? Anyone? Silvia?
Yeah, I'm going to go for the obvious answer. Educate yourself. There's millions of platforms out there that are talking about this topic. It's a hot topic. Educate yourself. Understand what is diversity and equity, and how you in your role can ensure that you recruit in a way which will allow diverse talent to get access to the jobs you're posting, and they have attractive language on the jobs that you post. Educate yourself. You'll be surprised how many recruiters still today are surprised when diversity topic comes up. In tech, I don't see that as much, but in other industries that are a bit more conservative, that's not even something that comes up to mind for some recruiters that have been recruiting for 30, 20 years, and which this wasn't a topic 20 years ago. So I'll say educate yourself.
Fantastic. What about you, Magnus? Would you say the same, or maybe some different advice?
Yeah, more or less, but also just you can an easy way in is just to start with your network. Reach out, book in some meetings, some coffee chats about the topic, discuss and saying you don't need to invent the wheel, but you can steal bits and pieces and try to customize for your own purpose.
Great advice.
It's not rocket science. Yeah, one small change can actually do a lot of impact.
Amazing advice. Denise?
Well, both already great advice, and I would say really look at the company that you're working at and what are they lacking, because often you see one aspect of the diversity that you're lacking, but really look at all the different aspects of diversity and then pinpoint what you're lacking, because then you can also focus your communication on those different groups.
Fantastic. And over to you, Lina.
Yeah, so I think also be patient. That's the last one for the end. It doesn't happen in 1 month, you know. It can take a year, it can take 2 years to build diverse teams. So be patient. Talk about it with your hiring teams. Talk about it with your people. Talk about it with your candidates, and eventually you'll succeed in building diverse teams. But it does take some time.
Perfect. Amazing advice, not only for me personally, but I'm sure for anyone, any talent professionals listening. And again, for maybe aspiring engineers or aspiring people in tech, I'm sure there's some great advice in there for them as well. So final thoughts, anyone got anything else to share, or yeah, is that us for today?
I think it's been really great to learn from all of you today. So I'm very happy we had such a fruitful discussion and really nice to share. And I'll already pick up some things and maybe start tomorrow.
This is a great example on the last question that you ask. How can we be successful? How can recruiters be successful? Do this, talk with people who walk the same walk as you. You'll learn from them.
Yeah, I think it's just always about being curious. You can always learn from anyone. Doesn't matter if it's like a graduate or like a senior manager.
Fantastic. Yeah, great. I didn't mean to cut you off there, Denise.
No, I said I fully agree. You can learn, and also when it comes to diversity and inclusion, you never stop learning, and you will make mistakes, and it's okay as long as you're doing it for the right reasons. Yeah.
Amazing.
Learn from your mistake and move on.
Perfect. Well, thank you all so much for joining today. Like I say, not only for people in tech, but also for talent professionals as well. I think it's been really, really great to hear everyone's point of view and share your experiences. So thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.